Hey guys, how's it going? The FN P90. This has become one of the most iconic PDWs over the last 3 decades now. At first glance, before we even start the review, some of you love how these look, some of you might hate it, some of you might be like me, whereas it's actually growing on me by the minute. And before we get going, just real quick here, in compliance with YouTube's new terms, I'm going to be referring to the FN P90, but this particular model here is a civilian legal version. This is the PS90, meaning semi-automatic. This rifle has a 16-inch barrel, and for purposes of this video, I'm using a magazine that is limited to only 25 rounds. So within compliance on YouTube on all of this. This weapon's completely unmodified, exactly the way it came out of the box from FN, and this is a brand new rifle that has actually never been fired. So we think about SMGs, and you also think about the term PDW. This is one that was actually started in the mid-80s with development ranging from about 1986 to 1990 by FN in Belgium. See, at that time, NATO had put out a request looking for a new SMG and a new pistol that would have different characteristics. Now, amongst these characteristics, they wanted a new cartridge that would have a greater range and accuracy than the 9x19. In addition, they wanted it to be able to penetrate body armor. This would be a shoulder-fired weapon that would weigh less than 6.6 pounds. It would have a mag capacity of at least 20 rounds. And then they would want a handheld personal defense weapon that would weigh less than 2.2 pounds. And that it would have a magazine capacity of at least 20 rounds. So FN, already developing this at this time, decided to put this in. And it was actually basically just what NATO wanted. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit later in this video about the HK46. And I have a video that's either on the channel now or will be soon with the new CMMG Banshee 300 series 4.6, and it kind of ties in with this. So if you're interested in that, hang around till the end. So what do we have here? Well, in this case, this literal example is a PS90. This fires semi-automatic, one pull of the trigger, and one round fires. But the original version that's been going in production for about 3 decades now, still in use today by many, many militaries, police throughout the world, tons of use. I'll get into that in just a minute. This is a bullpup. Bullpup, meaning that the trigger is all the way up here, and the actual action of the firearm sits rearward of the trigger. Housed in this somewhat blocky buttstock portion of the frame is actually indeed where the action of this firearm is occurring. Now, this is a straight blowback. It has a hammer firing mechanism. This one having a 16-inch barrel. The original version, the NFA version that some people do have in the United States, certainly police and militaries throughout the world, uses a 10.4-inch hammer forged barrel, making this a very, very compact little firearm. Like I said, completely blocky and squared off in certain ways, yet a very unique curving style here that, again, I keep finding more and more attractive as time goes by. Fits easily in the shoulder with much of the weight, especially if this were to be the shorter barreled version, sitting rear here, which leads to a lot less fatigue. Now, this fires from a rather unique cartridge that was also developed around this time for these NATO requirements for this weapon's design, and it's called the 5.7 by 28. This is a rather small, pointy bullet, bottlenecked cartridge that kind of resembles a short, stubby little rifle round. Being in 5.7, it's a 22 caliber, similar type bullets to the 5.56, although generally being a little bit lighter in grain weight, but not always. And we'll get to this ammo here in just a little bit. We have a polymer receiver frame area. This is a modular firearm that's very easy to take down for maintenance, cleaning, different adaptions, things like that. There's been several different renditions of this over the years, different series, if you will, with different types of configurations up here, including a holographic sight built into some of them. In this case, this has a rail where it would accept. Again, these are all factory accessories that came with this semi-automatic PS90. We can see dual action bars, both on the right and on the left, with little cocking knobs appropriately. Very easy to use while the firearm is shouldered. We see a nice curved feeling here, like a thumb hole grip that actually is very comfortable, as well as a curved front area with a hand stop to keep your hand from going too far forward. This having a 16-inch barrel, not so big of a deal, but if you think about the original, with it literally cutting off about right here, the original military and police version, I should clarify, with a small little muzzle device, you definitely want to keep that hand back. Now, when they designed this, part of the requirements were to be very compact, easy for troops to carry. PDW, personal defense weapon, crew serve vehicles, tanks, working within homes, small buildings, corridors, things like that. This was actually meant to be a very small, actually with the whole firearm. Imagine if this was a military or police version with the barrel ending about right here, designed to be less than the width of the average person's shoulders. So therefore, when slung, nothing's going to stick out. It's not going to snag when you're working in tight components areas. Now, this is basically a get-off-me gun, designed to shoot at relatively close ranges, very high rates of fire. I believe the firing speed on this is like 850 to 1100 rounds per minute. So crazy. Now the range, the maximum effective range, is basically considered out to about 200 meters, maybe 400 meters in certain circumstances. Now the bullet itself will travel up to almost 2,000 meters, but not effective at that long of a range. So this is a very short, close quarters combat. From me to you, as the saying goes, get off me, high rates of fire, to get people out of certain jams, situations, protect high valued personnel. A lot of these have been used in security, things like that. And this is actually being used like in 40 different countries between militaries and police forces, including in the United States. Over 200 police departments actually issue and own versions of the P90. Now, you've also seen tons of these in video games, obviously. Very iconic. I'm not a gamer myself, but I'm very aware this is one of the classic firearms that's in many of the most popular video games. This definitely has a cool factor to it. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of ugly in a way, but the longer I keep looking at this firearm, I actually think it looks pretty darn cool. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this little PS90. The trigger's up here. Now, with any bullpup, considering how you actually have to have a linkage bar that connects all the way back to the rear, this is where the action is of the firearm. It's never going to be the best trigger, but I find a nice big wide polymer trigger shoe. It's actually pretty darn crisp, especially for a bullpup. The reset, you can hear it, you can feel it. So by bullpup trigger standards, I think it's actually pretty good. I'll show you guys the trigger right here. Really not much take up, just a teeny bit. Nice and crisp. Let's go ahead and reset that trigger. Okay, not bad. Now, some of you are probably asking, well, hold on a minute. Where's the magazine? Well, as I briefly mentioned earlier, this exact version that I'm showing right here in this video, 25 round magazine, just because we're complying with YouTube. Now I'm going to have bonus footage of this over on my locals, so check the pinned comment for that, and I'm going to do a bonus video. Locals is totally free to join, or you can support, and I appreciate all the ways you guys support over there, just hanging out with me. So definitely click on that if you want more info. We're going to have a little bit of bonus footage. But the magazine, and this is what's one of the most unique things about this rifle, the magazine's actually sitting right here on top of the receiver of the firearm, and below this base here, you have nothing hanging out of the bottom. In fact, this is downward ejected, where the spent casings, the spent brass, is actually going to come out of this open void in the bottom, and you can see some of the action right there, all located within the rear, what we would consider the stock portion of this PDW. It's pretty easy to do, a lot easier when you're not on camera. There's just two little pull levers. We're just going to take the magazine out here. And there you go. These come in many different capacities. The original military versions and police versions are 50 rounds. They're also available for civilians in the United States. This particular one, though, I procured 25 rounds because we're on YouTube. So we're just going to push this forward. There's a little ledge in the front where it kind of sits there. And I'm just going to press down, and it clicks in place, making it where there's nothing hanging out below the firearm. If this were a military police version, or if you procured a tax stamp and shorten this barrel up to here, it literally is exactly what they advertised. The whole firearm would be narrower than the width of my shoulder blades, me having an average size build as far as the width of my shoulders. It's very, very compact, very, very easy to use. Now, the other thing with this round is very controllable at high rates of fire. Again, this one being a semi-automatic right here, but the military police version, just basically a brr, brr, brr firearm, very little muzzle rise, very controllable. Get off me, lay down suppressive fire, lots of special forces, security details, police, SWAT teams, things like that. This is not a battle rifle. It was not meant to replace firearms like the M16, M4, HKG3 used in many countries. No, this was a personal defense weapon, otherwise known as a SMG. And I think they actually pulled it off. I've not had the chance to shoot one of these yet. Again, this one being brand new out of the box, but from what I understand, very, very controllable, especially high rates of fire, or in this case with the United States version, semi-automatic. So right here is your selector. This one being, again, a semi-automatic. We have two positions, S, and then the number 1 in red. So we can put the safety on. It blocks the bolt there. Actually, it's not blocking the action. It appears it's just blocking the trigger. Sorry about that, guys. I'm still kind of getting to know this particular firearm. So it looks like even with the safety on, you can still run the action of it. It's just not going to allow you to pull the trigger. Rotate this, just one little click. There's little serrations here where you can easily just put your finger in there. Quite easy to actuate, actually. Locks the trigger. Take the safety off. Now, the military and police version would have one more notch, and that would be for full auto, which, unfortunately, due to the Hughes Amendment of 1986, you're not going to find any of those here for regular civilian Americans, because this gun was developed in the 80s, but really didn't come out until about 1990, and then some revisions of the cartridge led to a final version of this ammunition around 1993. So let's take a look at the ammo real quick here. This is the 5.7 by 28. This is made by FNH USA, which are out of Columbia, South Carolina. Basically neighbors to PSA. Quick little trivia for you guys. This is what's called the SS197 SR Sporting Cartridge. So let's take a quick peek at this. Like I said, at first glance, it looks like a little miniature rifle round. It actually reminds me of a 223 5.56 short, and indeed the 5.7 is a 22 caliber bullet. So we can see the brass cartridge has a nice bottleneck there. The projectile, this has the VMAX 40 grain. Again, different options out there available, but this is certainly one of the most popular civilian use cartridges here in the United States. They also make much lighter cartridges. See, when the cartridge was originally developed, it was actually super, super light grain. But they kind of bumped up the grain weight just a little bit. But we still see cartridges offered in the 28 grain range, 40 grain, 35 grain. So there's different options out there. And availability on ammo for this has been kind of tough. Certainly expensive in the last year and a half here. But it's out there. And it is available. Again, more information on that actually in my bonus locals video. But yeah, this is designed to be a fast little bullet. Even this 40 grain coming out at about 2100 foot per second. So it's fast. It was designed for the Hague Convention, which didn't allow hollow points. There's different frangible type ammo, fragmenting, tumbling, many different characteristics, depending again on the particular design loading that you would get for this. Some are a little bit more available than others in the United States. I believe there's a loading of this that's available for law enforcement and military. that either you can't get in the United States for civilians, or it's becoming very difficult to get. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this firearm here. Little PDW, SMG. I don't really philosophically like the idea of paying $200 to exercise my natural rights and pay for tax stamps that will perpetuate gun control, but I get it. Some people go with the whole don't cut off your nose to spite your face. That's on you guys. I'm never going to tell you how to think, but I could imagine, though, if somebody were to procure a tax stamp for this and bring the barrel down to that 10.4, oh my gosh, it'd be one of the most compact little designs ever. And I want to emphasize one more time, this little guy is actually comfortable. And the trigger ain't bad, which I'm not surprised. It's made by FNH, Belgium, brought into the country in Columbia, South Carolina. This is a high-quality firearm made by one of the most famous makers of guns of all time, right? Now, there's also an FN companion pistol to this, the FN57, which is a rather large framed handgun, with this cartridge having an overall length rather long, longer than 45 or 10 millimeters, certainly. So, if you have big hands, a lot of people like that. Ruger's also come up with a 5.7 offering, which I think is pretty cool. Now, let's get on to the HK46 versus FM57, because the HK46 has formerly kind of been almost a forgotten round, if you will. I don't want to say completely, but one that really hasn't taken off nearly as much as the 5.7. However, CMMG and their Banshee series has kind of brought it back again. And again, check that locals post, because I have some bonus footage on the 4.6, and you either already have seen or are going to see soon on this channel a video on that new CMMG Banshee. So basically, in around 2002-2003, NATO conducted a series of tests where they were trying to look for a replacement for the 9x19, right? And they compared the relative merits of the 5.7x28, which is what we have right here, and then also the HK46x30, which was created in Germany as a competitor to the 5.7. So they basically took a group of experts from Canada, France, the UK, the United States, and the conclusion was that the 5.7x28, with no doubt in their mind at all, was the more efficient cartridge. The German delegation and others rejected the NATO recommendation, and they did actually still make the 4.6x30, and Germany developed a firearm in that. Again, CMMG, available in the United States. They're just starting to come out right now for United States civilian use. So, yeah, the 4.6 is used technically by several countries' militaries and police. I don't want to say the cartridge died, but overwhelmingly, most of the Western world, most of the NATO countries said, no, this committee of experts they said the 5.7, this is the PDW cartridge, so that's why this firearm has remained so prolific, whereas until recently, you didn't see any 4.6 HK firearms in the United States. But for those of you that are fans of the 4.6, or you've read about it or wondering about it, it is here now in the United States, which I thought was pretty cool. So, yeah, head over to locals for some more bonus footage. I'll put the link to the video on the CMMG Banshee and the HK46 also in the pinned comment. I'm working on a couple videos at a time right now, so I'm just not sure if this one's going to come out first or the CMMG Banshee. But they are kind of closely related. They've been competitors of each other. I guess it's kind of been a little bit of a Ford versus Chevy debate, or Chevy versus Dodge, or whatever. Just stuff that people kind of like to argue about. But for what this little rifle is, I'm actually very impressed with it. I wish I owned this. This is being loaned to me by a friend, so it's actually not mine, but we'll see if we can do some more follow-ups later if you guys are interested. Alright, thanks for watching, and have a good one.